That's not supposed to be company. I kind of like it. Oh, there. Yeah, yeah. Like, anyone. Anyways, for those that will probably watch this back, take notes. Nothing serious. That live stream wherein I think what I'm just going to be doing mainly is talk about what has been for 5 years, maybe, and a preamble of prior to then, what is to come. The intent for now. Like I think my goal overall is to get more conversational as regards my works, especially with the poetry, the way that I never did or used to do. Let me check this stats for sound. Up. All right. Up. In all can hear me properly. That's what it's and that's what's this is watch background. So let's go live. Let's share it to the folks. What's up? This is that live stream. This is the live stream. So there is someone I intended to share this stream to. Can't recall now, right? I think it was. Yes, even though this is like the first preparation, there is still whole lots I need to fine tune. That's how I want this going, how it starts and all that. Generally, most of the streams are going to be like this. Just chill and us taking it and trying to have fun. So I'm trying to share it now to Instagram, guys. Instagram. Sometimes when I use this social media, I I tend to see myself like I'm from one old generation because I don't understand why I'm a techie and I'm this young and I'm sometimes having issues just getting myself out there. You who faced. So I have managed to successfully share a couple of people. I'm going to cut out this part perhaps after this stream is done. That those that would come to watch it back will be able to just jump right into it. You know. Okay, first off, in this and they're like, this is that stream said going to happen, created, and suddenly it ended. Yes, this is the stream. I've been having some glitches as regards my setup, technical glitches, by the way, and that's why I couldn't keep up. Let's run through this. Let's let's run through this, and we might end up making this long by doing what we tend to eventually do later by just starting it now. Or we might end up being able to achieve a very short stream because we're able to just talk about all we want to talk about already as quick as possible. Let me look at the camera so you guys will stop having this artifact of me looking away from you. So it's been such I wanted to say a wild journey or a wild ride, but wild does not really define it. It has been it has been a javelin. Yes, I think Xenos puts it best in one of his songs and his latest EP. That EP, I've even forgotten what he named it, but he said straight eye like a javelin. Then you know the way javelins are, and it goes all the way back down, and like that. It's been definitive of the fact that life is not just the mids or the highs. Has a lot of lows. Life is not just linear, like up. So I went from being a child that barely being able to face crowds, um, finding myself wanting to face crowds or can't face crowds and eventually facing crowds from doing poetry. Now, one thing most people don't know about me is proud to me eventually coming out publicly as a poet and doing poetry. I was a developer already. I think first time I touched sing codes or write code 2011, right? And the first time I really like put myself out there poetry sing. sing. Yeah, it was around 2014. Yeah, I've been writing proud to that. Literally, I've been a poet all my life. I think of the fact of how it has been with my father. My father is a storyteller, and how that kind of did shape and influence the way I write the best of poems, and the way I tend to dodge proverbs a lot. And the first poetry performance I ever did was, I think, 2015 January. That was at my first work faculty, physical sciences, Department of Chemistry. Yeah. And since then, it has been a couple of schools, couple of states, not outside the country, in the country, and a whole lot of stages. And then I started hosting poetry concerts. Now, I can see that, yeah, I'm actually been saying this like trying to be concise. That's brief and detailed. So we are going to just, let a couple of things slide that I'm supposed to perhaps maybe talk about. Maybe we'll talk about them when, talks get up to those sections. Spoken in a lot in a couple of stages, right? Like a couple of people spoken at corporate events like one NNPC events back then, dinner nights, back and forth a lot. And I started hosting poetry concerts. First poetry concert I hosted was in 2017 with the help of Queen. Yeah, I was with the Ignite Youth then. And then second poetry concert I hosted also with them, 2019, Queen Hilltop. Yes, Simply Worship International Ministry, by the way, in case you're wondering what I mean by swim. Um, and then came the, I wouldn't say peak, because I kind of, in a way, I've peaked in a way, right? There's a whole lot of peaks one could always get to in their art. But when it comes to that very grassroots, I've peaked in a way. And the next thing I'm about to say, you might say, oh, it's a peak. But not necessarily. It's a peak as regards the ending poetry wise, but not otherwise. Then 2020, and I got the employment of Rhea Bini as a resident poet. Now, that's something I can brag about in a way, because there is not much people that can come around tell you that they've worked as a resident poet. Now, that work is something I did for 5 years straight. Only had to end recently, just I think about 2 or 3 months ago. And boy, did I learn a lot. Boy, did I get exhausted. But so much just because I love poetry that much. Boy, did I have dreams. Boy, did I try things. Did I reform? Did I transform? Did I become a better writer? Yes. Did I become a more conversational writer? Yes. Did I become more of a local writer in a way? The broader your audience gets and tougher they get, the more you realize a couple of things need to be switched up. I'm talking in terms of, prior to me working at Rehab, my poems barely had any elements of pigeon in them. When I started working at Rehab, my poems started developing pigeon in them. Now that I say that, I remember OJ. OJ is about, like, I think the first set of guys that I would say wrote very um art serenading kind of pigeon poems I ever listened to. And I think the best I ever had on the team was Reward. Yes, if Reward ever sees this, I think it's going. Reward was like the best pigeon poet ever. I did end up with a boy, explicit, and he's really good. He's really good. He's one of those that I was a prodigies that made me the proudest. That makes me the proudest. But Reward is just something else. Now we're digressing too much because it seems like I'm diving down memory lane. And then it went on. The idea was to see how, with the employment of Riabini and then betting on poetry, and make poetry form of entertainment that is better accepted by the general populace of Benin and consequently beyond. It worked. It worked. It worked in a way and to an extent, but there were factors. There were limiting factors, a lot that we can discuss about, but not today. And that's ended up making so that overall, when you look at it, grand scheme of things, it work. It did not really work. But it was not a fail. 5 straight years of Wednesday in, Wednesday out, virtually over 90% of over 98% of all those Wednesdays stood on that stage and performed. It didn't matter what the state was, but I delivered. Now that's done. That's done. And some things dawned on me that I think I had been coming to terms with, but not as much as I should, prior to the arrangement ending, which is, as it is with most salary based jobs, you give, one will suffer. You have your own thing going. You either have those you are in their employment suffer not getting the best of your abilities. But if they're going to get you to the best of your abilities, your stuff would have to suffer to an extent. Home poetry suffered, which was like which is basically the main poetry startup I had going. It suffered. Yeah, it did. EBG 51 somehow tried to survive. Some people know PBG 51. If you don't, we don't need to digress that much now. But lately, they ended up suffering. You see all of those me speaking in older places and trying to release, tracks and hosting concerts, most especially, suffered. The last time, like I stated, I hosted a many people really didn't understand. People be like, it was not just one day, every week. Hmm, no job is easy. And beyond what goes into that one day is beyond just that if just that particular live poetry show. It's it's more than just the average on its eyes me. And that's why prior to me saying, oh, I got in the employment realize and you like, oh, why is it that 2019 was the last time you had a poetry concert? Well, gosh. So there is the good news about that is there is a big tenders that you guys might experience me over poetry concert. So what's next? Now that we're here, I to do something within that have been on my mind in different iteration over the years, but in this particular way, it had been on my mind since last year, 2024 ended around that time. It's to have live shows, technically, but they won't be basically to the poetry performance, poetry edition, or something like that. In most of the times, these live shows, like the one at right now, live streams, would be me reading a book and hopefully forming a a group of fellow readers that in moments wherein they are too tired out to pick up a book to read themselves, in periods at a stretch wherein when they get home they find themselves wanting to relax with a book, but it's a strain for them to pick up a book to read themselves. We find that there are some particular days that I particularly pick up certain book to read. Books that we probably would decide in a poll together upon that this is the next book we want to read. I have quite a ton of books to read from. Even though the first one we're going to be reading from I'll be choosing it, okay? But you come back to a stream that is live or which you can watch it of, and you find me reading the book as calmly as possible, or line with the tone of the chapter being read, maybe suspense, maybe action, the tone just gets translated to you live stream, and you get to finish books without actually picking them up, or from just getting into the serene thrill of being entertained while reading a book without you actually reading the book itself. Or you go through the experience watching a movie. That's the plan. If I'm going to put it in a nutshell, that's the plan. Now, is it open for modifications along the line? Will the modus operandi change? Will there be days wherein we'll have um authors invited, would have co-streamers joining to stream with us and stuff? Sure, there will be days as such. It all depends on agreements and plans we make accordingly together. But until then, the way I have just described what we intend to do and achieve is about the only way we'll go about it. About the only way we'll go about it. And that wasn't so hard to do. I think that's just about it. It's me wanting to figure out. I feel there's a whole lot that I want to say, still probably say later someday. For now, I think that sums it all up and an extent on what has been up, what is to come, and what will be done. So let's get to it already. So this will be the first book that we'll be reading. You know, I thought about I thought about saying you guys should pick. I thought about, okay, let me pick and which one I should read. And I picked this particular one that has been in my shelf, if I have one. I just have somewhere I stack the books. I picked this particular one that has been with me for a while now, and I intended to read even before I got married because the title basically is this: If Jesus Were Your Counselor. And from what I learned, it's it's going to be a very useful one as we get. You know, now that I'm reading the title out loud, something is off. I this I could have sworn that this book is supposed to be Jesus or your marriage counselor. I swear. What changed? I'm suspecting my wife, guys. I think she picked up this book overnight and rewrote the title. I she's by my side, using one corner eye to look at me. Guys, I'm really suspicious of something. I think I have another book that speaks about marriage, right? But guys, we're going to be starting off with this, and it might not be that we would read the entirety of the book before we pick up another one, right? We could pick up another one in between, and then we alternate between the two on different days, or read one for 1 hour, read the other one for another hour. I intend to make sure the live streams are about an hour long at least, and in most cases 2 hours long at most. So I intend to read this. Either way, I don't care if the title seems to have changed overnight in my eyes. This book has been calling me for a while now. So we're reading it. No arguments, no 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 negotiations, no discussions about it. We are reading it by your counselor. And 50 questions about life's greatest issues answered by Christ seems to be the author's summary in the statement of the book. Yeah, you see that it says 50 questions about life's greatest issues that by Christ. And this was compiled by Selwyn Hughes. It says, here are 50 of the most frequently asked questions and comments about God, life, and faith. So this is where I'm going to have you guys see what's our view will be like when we are doing the readings. And give me a minute. So to be this license, the license is tailored appear this way. So when I'm reading, you get to you get to keep a view of my face. The webcam will stay on, but at the same time, there comes a book cam in a way. Now we are currently using Droid Cam app, and I don't know why. I'm going to work on this later. Might not even be next live stream, but I will work on it eventually. We're currently using Droid Cam app, and I don't know why. It seems to have this big old watermark on the screen. So you would always get to see the book as I'm reading it, and you'll probably be able to read off some things from the screen while I read it. So as you can see, say if Jesus were your counselor, here are 50 of the most frequently asked questions and comments about God, life, faith, and relationship answered by Jesus' own words. Taken from the message version of the New Testament, this book is destined to become a classic reference work in Christian counseling. Selwyn Hughes. Selwyn Hughes founded CWR in 1965, an organization committed to applying God's words to everyday life and relationships. Over 40 years of counseling experience, he has counseled thousands of Christians throughout the world and created a counseling training program for Waverly Christian Training in, sorry, okay, Waverly Christian. Yeah, I think that's what the CWR stands for. England. In addition to writing the daily devotional, okay, was this man the one in charge of the popular daily devotional? Every day with Jesus. Okay, that's the name of his own daily devotional. Every day with Jesus, which is estimated to be read by 500,000 people. Nice numbers, man. Selwyn Hughes continues to teach and preach in the United Kingdom and across the globe. If Jesus were your counselor, Jesus were your counselor, confined by Selwyn Hughes, I just want. So he says, tip yourself into God's reality, God's initiative, God's provision. This part resonates with me. Already. I now I see why he was just doing it for me, like in my head. See, let's take it back. Keep your Let me backtrack that. Keep yourself in God's reality, God's initiative, God's provisions. Often than not, we believe too much in how much we can achieve by just the works of our hands and solely by our own hard work. And you have no idea how many times I have fumbled by trying to just tough it out my own accord. That's something I would never recommend. So definitely not, right. I like how this kind of already touched that from just the first page or so. Okay, I'm loving this already. You will find your everyday human concerns will be met. Thank you, Mr. Selwyn. Hallelujah. Luke 12:31 to 32. Wait, do I have the Bible app on this new phone? On this phone I recently got. Let me check it out. The other phones we can't use them right now because I don't have Bible installed yet. I would have read it out. You have the Bible on your phone. I would have read it out so that I will read it out the way it actually said in the Bible. So my wife says she has it on her iPhone. Phone is beside me, so let me try using. So it says it picked up this quote from Luke. That's it. So Luke 12 verse 31, 31 to 32. So in the book it says, but rather ye. Oh, okay, okay, okay. That's the verse. I should have known. I should have known that is what this man literally just wrote out. It's almost like the way I do PPG 5.1. Now, for those that do not know, those quotes in PPG 5.1 are most times specifically purposely written in that way to make you feel like, are you sure the Bible said this? Let me pick up my Bible and check it out myself. And in that process, you end up reading the Bible. The aim of PPG 5.1 most of the day is that you find yourself communing with God easier. You find yourself reading the Bible every single day. PPG 5.1 will be back, by the way, in case you're wondering what's been happening. A lot has been happening, but we'll be back. So Luke 12:31 to 32, King James Version reads like this. But rather seek ye the kingdom of God, and all these things shall be added unto you. The formula is this is say humanly possible. It's very hard to follow, but it's actually very easy. Seek ye first the kingdom of God, and feel that thing added unto it. For you, fear not, little flock, for it is your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. So when you're like, oh, the kingdom of God is hard and stuff like that, I'm going to easily even find achieving my goal that I intend to of seeking it. You should also understand from verse 32 that fear not, little flock. It is your Father's good pleasure to give the kingdom. It's God's intention already to give the kingdom. So there is no biggie. You are going to find it easy when you seek the kingdom of God. You're going to find it easy to actually um get what you see. So let's oh Ace. I actually have a lot to read. So let's just get on right with already. So this part speak. Hmm? Yeah. Oh yeah. He was making known to me that I wasn't showing a part to it. So this part speaks of let me even move this down a bit. So okay, it's talking about copyright stuff, I believe, yeah. Talking about how he took most of its writings from the message. That's the version of the Bible. So the content of this hearing is introduction, which is in page 15. We're currently on page 7. Page 1 say, how can I make my prayer life more effective? That's chapter 1, I mean. Content. Number 2, when people hurt me, I find it hard to forgive. Oh my days. Now, this one thing about me. I Most people will tell you that doesn't get angry. Doesn't get angry. He's good. Is that a lie? I get angry. I remember telling my wife this. But when it comes to react, most of the time I know how to just chuck it in, let you just stuff yourself, or at the end of the day, just blow it all to the wind, down to the relationship. But when it comes to forgive, Jesus, I think I will need this part. It's always tough. And I'd even written a poem about that, I never really did record and share. That's another thing we are going to get to now that we are here in this step of our life. That is for me to eventually push out more poetry works for the public. There's a lot of poems most of you never really heard because you never came to the live shows at Rehab when the arrangement was still on, and a lot more poems that are just sitting there in my notes because they were never really perfect for the rehab audience for it to be performed, and some that just never got finished because I was always too tied up. Because one of the main reasons why it seemed like I had been overwhelmed within that past 5 years necessarily was not just for the whole um rehab job itself though, like the whole poetry job, but because I had to keep up with other things, which I said, of course, every now and then we'll digress more about some things, which are basically staying alive, living life, which also now involved every single other part that makes up Safrank. Poets, the the developer, the designer. Guy that is trying to earn money and make a living, gets his family started, do this, do that. Yeah. All of those things come into play. Anyway, Sha, let's not divert from what we are all doing already yet. When people hurt me, I find it hard to forgive. Chapter 3, what is the secret of living under God's blessing? 4, is that a point to my being in this world? Or more, I would like to know this answer, even though I think yeah, I know it, but I like to see the perspective on this one. And I will need to read this part to my wife. I worry about money and material things. Bingo. No, no, I was talking about number 4. You guys heard that voice. Guys, very careful. I'm newly married. So you be very careful. As the older married men. That's all I can say. I can't say more. I'm not under duress. I'm my own accord. I'm afraid to surrender to God's will for my life. Hmm. Mm, I am not afraid. Surrender to God's will. But I think where this might pick some bosses with this, while I surrender to God, try to be very logical. Sometimes in a way that I myself would be like, "Mm, you're not giving your all, this surrender as much as you should because you're scared of of um let's go back to this of what would happen to you if you do not try to undo some things yourself and just be like, oh, God will solve it. I just need to keep just doing this thing. Yeah. You know that fear of supplication not coming in a timely manner and you not being able to make up for your needs because you were busy heavily doing God's work. Yeah, I need to find a way around that and I hope this can help. When someone has hurt me, what should I do? So that those are the first 7. Over time, as we read, we'll see the rest. I think there will be very, very short paragraph for them to be able to fit. They have to be really short, if not, right. And introduction. Let's go. So there was on one occasion, let me get this straight. On one occasion, when I was in the United States, I came across a painting which depicted a businessman in a modern day suit, sitting with a worried expression on his face before Jesus Christ, who was dressed in a pencil garb. Christ's hand was outstretched and open, as if making a point of like it was clear from the painting that the artist meant to suggest that the businessman was being counseled by Christ. For some time now, the idea has lingered in my mind as to what Jesus would say to us. Oh, that's how it came about the title, "Just were a counselor." For some time now, the idea has lingered in my mind as to what Jesus would say to us if we brought to him some of our modern day questions. Would he say anything different from what he said to the men and the women of his day? I think not. In this book, I have posted specific questions for which there are clear answers given by Christ. In Gospels, as a pastor and a counselor, many of these questions have been asked of me at one time or another. But much more powerful, the answers are when one considers they are the actual words of the master. That context talking about Jesus. Jesus. A few words of explanation, however, are necessary before you set out to use it. In today's climate of counseling, where counselors are encouraged to be non confrontational and non judgmental, our Lord's answers might at first sound a little hard and lacking in compassion. Yes, because everybody will be shouting, be empathetic. And everybody is woke in a way that they actually yield to slumber, they sleep on poor, poor advice that might come up as you being reprimanded, and then they miss out on things that can actually help their life get better. So I think I feel this one, and I don't care how any of the things is in this book come off, man. So long they are the words of Christ, down to listening and trying to integrate them the best I can. And to think this man had written this book long ago, and he's talking about how people don't want to be patient now. Only you could see the way the world was now. Much of today's counselor is what is known as client centered. The counselor avoids telling the person what to do, but gently probes, asks questions, reflects back, all with a view to helping the person come up with answers that might seem right for them. You know, now some people might be quick to dismiss me here and start pointing fingers and calling me names, but I'm going to say it as it is. Now, this is the vibe you guys are going to get in this kind of streams because I'm going to be very sincere. Women, women, I have a lot of friends. Okay, maybe not a lot, but I do have a couple of friends, a couple of female friends that I tend to want to try and help out when they come lamenting and asking me questions as regards some things about life, especially when it comes to the way they handle and deal with the the opposite gender, the male gender. Now I know what the male gender is more than you. It's just facts. It's as factual as the way you would know a woman's body more than me. So if I'm telling you this thing is like this, you should listen. I don't want to mention names, but there's this short, slim girl that I've known for years now. You are Nigerian, you are in Nigeria, you know yourself. And I want to advise you sometime and just tell you, it's just life. It's like me trying to teach you how to handle women's hygiene because I have a lot of sisters. Does not mean I know it's better than you. Now, but you want me to sound all sweet in moments where you actually really need to be told how much of a mess you've made and how you just need to man up even though you're a woman in some instances. Or you want it to be client setter, you want to be I know, see, I get it. Guys, sometimes, no, most times, when women come to you, they don't actually want solutions. They want be patted on the back. They want to be, you know. uh, But sometimes, truthfully, when you have a problem that is hitting you so bad that you break down to someone in a way so painful, you should be on the lookout to being given a solution, not being given a pity party. I will not go around throwing a pity party for you at every. Let's get back. This is not Christ's way. Yes, Christ's way does not go client centered, trying to placate you, trying to ameliorate the situation by first suiting your emotions. It's true. This is a all-knowing being. It's an all-knowing being. It's a man that as a man was busy whipping people in the synagogue. Yeah. So don't expect him to come around and try to be woke with how he would advise you on how your life will get better. You grab. That is not Christ's way. He, above all human beings, knows exactly what to say in answers to every question. And that is why when he answers a question, you can be sure it's always the right answer. And everything he says is reality based. Christ always tells it. And you can't, in in any sane manner, be like, how will you understand? After all, he's God's. He has it all, not lacking anything. He's He's the omnipotent being, and stuff like that. That will not be a very sane conclusion and in inference on the basis of his powers and his magnanimity, because then you'll be forgetting the sole fact that he came to life to die for us as a human. He lived as a human. He had moments of doubt. He had moments of wherein he literally begged his father. He had moments wherein he almost gave up on his dream, his goals, aim, um, trying to be like if this couple pass over and stuff like that. So when he gives advice, when you try to reach forward, you need to understand that this is not someone just talking from the perspective of being the top, the top being, but from the perspective of being someone that has also lived life we are living. Nothing new under the sun, the quotes, and basically can also be translated to nothing new to God, nothing new to Jesus, right? There's nothing you want to go through that has not felt as a human. Now, that's where it gets really, because if someone that has felt what you felt some ways and has the kind of knowledge you will never get to achieve, advises you best to listen. I think there is a Bible verse, not that I think, I've read that Bible verse multiple times. I can't remember the exact chapter now. I don't tend to keep those stuffs in my eyeball. I know I've even used it for PH51 codes before, wherein he was talking about how God understands us to the core because his son was here before and has actually gone through what we are going through, what we go. And KB said in one of his songs, he said, couldn't sleep. Then he saw the ants that were holding him. And then while he's complaining about all he has been going through and all of that, he said he saw the holes in them, and the ants holding me were like, son, I know you. I've got holes too. So if you feel you have holes in your life, holes in your heart, holes literally every single way and place that ought, know that Christ stands that to the core. I think, however, our Lord's statements or those traits to the point would come across with great compassion and love if he were sitting before you in the flesh. It's better to keep this in mind. His eyes, I believe, would show concern for you as a person, yeah? And his tone of voice would be exceedingly tender. That's why I try to keep cool with you guys, when I try to tell it as it is. So, don't need that, Frank. Even when putting you, even when putting before you the strongest challenge, he had nothing but contempt for hypocrites, such as the Pharisees. But to anyone who is sincere and struggling, it says in effect, I know you are hurting. I know you're struggling. But I love you too much not to tell you it as it is. He is, after all, the writer to the Hebrew. He is, after all, as the writer to the Hebrews put it, a high priest who is able to sympathize with our weakness. You see. So you can't really just rip off any advice of Jesus and be like, it's not sympathetic. Able to sympathize with our weakness. Hebrew 4 verse 15. Now, most of the stuff we're saying and reading through not resonates with you. Not believe, not believe God as the Lord and personal Savior. If you do not believe the Bible, so this might be hard for you to follow along, and that's very understandable. Or if you can keep an open mind, I'm not about to do an altar call and be like your hands on your chest and all that. No, but if you can keep an open mind and try to indulge Jesus as possible, it will be beneficial, regardless of your religion or beliefs, or how core your beliefs are. He is, after all, as the writers as the writer to the Hebrews put it, the high priest able to sympathize with our weakness. Hebrews 4 verse 15. Once again, I urge you to keep that family at the front of your mind as you read. And if at times you're tempted to think he raises the standard to almost unbelievable height, then remember that also he provides the strength by which we can reach up to them. All we have to do is provide the willingness to put into action what he advises, supplies the power. It's like some people would tell you, God does not call the qualified, qualifies the one he, okay? He can do it. Another thing that needs to be remembered as you use this book is sometimes Christ's answers can be very obscure. You only have to peruse some of the stories Jesus told to be convinced of that. It is often thought that Jesus told stories to illustrate his meaning, but actually, in many instances, the opposite is true. Some of his stories reveal, but most of them are intended concept. I like what Eugene Peterson says about this. This story, besides inviting us into a larger world than we presently inhabit, pulls us in as participants. These are not stories that entertain, that let us sit back and watch the action. More often than not, one or another of them lodges unnoticed in our consciousness and then unexpectedly begins to release sight, creating perspective to keep the very ground beneath us so that we find ourselves reeling, reaching out for wisdom. The disciples once asked Jesus, "Why do you tell stories?" This was his reply: "You've been given insight into God's kingdom. You know how it works. Not everybody has this insight. Whenever someone has a ready heart for this, the insight and understandings flow freely. But if there is no readiness, any trace of receptivity disappears. That's why I tell stories, to create readiness to nudge the people towards receptive insight. In their present state, they can stare to doomsday and not see it. Listen till they are blue in the face and not get it. Matthew 13, verse 10 to 13. You know, this telling of stories to get people ready and all of that resonates with me strongly also as a poet. Best poems you would ever tell that will linger on in the arts of are the ones that are in the form of story, of a story. Yeah, storyteller poems. Most people till today know me best for one of my oldest poems, Aduni. Have I not written more technically adept poems? Damn, these people are lovely readers and viewers. They do not love it as much as Aduni. They see me and they go, Aduni. Jesus Christ, Aduni was 2017. This is 2025, and you still refer to me as Mr. Aduni. Not married, and you're asking. Your name Aduni. Are we okay? So I imagined many people listened to Jesus' stories and went shaking their heads, wondering what it was all about. However, those who wanted to know would get the point. Understanding our Lord story is not a matter of IQ, but a desire to know the truth, even though the truth might hurt. When you approach the stories of Jesus from that standpoint, then believe me, come home to you. On one occasion, it is recorded that all Jesus did that day was tell stories. People will think I'm talking too many stories, Abby. You saw Jesus all day, just the talk story. Who am I not to tell stories? Not a wine. So, on one occasion, it is recorded that all Jesus did that day was tell stories. A long storytelling afternoon, Matthew 13, verse 34. The message on still another occasion, the high priest and the leaders of the people came to Christ and demanded to see his credentials. Who authorized you to teach here? They, they asked Jesus. Jesus responded, saying, "First, let me ask you a question. You answer my question, and I will answer yours. About the baptism of John, who authorized it? Heavens or humans? Heaven or humans?" The high priest and the leaders were on the spot because they knew if they said heaven, Jesus would ask them, why did they not believe in John's message? And if they said humans, they will be in trouble with the people because they all saw John as a prophet sent from God. But Jesus is very tactical. They answered by saying, "We don't know." Jesus then said, "Then neither will I answer your question." Okay, this actually reminds me of a Chinua Achebe in, I think, the Things Fall Apart. Was it things fall apart that Funa got murdered, or was it the arrow of God? One of the two. I'm going to tell that thing it reminds me of. And because we're going to be done with this for now. This way we'll end this because it's not supposed to be like the mainstream. And then we'll start with chapter one with the next stream. It's almost an hour now. My prayer is that as you read this book, you will enter into the same experience as the two disconsolate disciples on the Emmaus road, who, as they reflected on what Christ said to them, remarked, were not our hearts burning within us while he talked with us on the road and opened the scriptures to us? Luke 24, verse 32. I will leave you now in the hands of Christ, the wonderful counselor. Isaiah 9, verse 6. Believe me, as someone who has counseled most of his life and who knows many good and godly counselors, they would not, I know, disagree with my final statement. You are in the best hands possible. And by that, it means in the hands of God, the hands of Jesus. Elohim. Sir, I love you already. I'm going to browse up about you. So that's it for reading the beginning, right, of the book we're going to be based on reading sessions. And the reference, Chinua Achebe references, they gathered together and talked about how they tried to speak up when they met with the whites, and whites would not let them talk technically. And then one of them said they do not have tradition. A man may refuse, may not refuse to be questioned, or may refuse to answer. See, just like Jesus practically refused to answer, but he did not be questioned technically. And that's it for this session of the stream, guys. See you in the next one, hopefully. For now, ciao.